your weekday cup of the Word. Today we're going to finish up Psalm 78. We're going to go from verse 40 to the end. And verse 40 tells us what happened to God when that generation, when that nation was so faithless and didn't trust Him. And really what verse 40 says is that it hurt God. We often think of how we feel in circumstances when God does this or God does that. But we have to remember God has feelings too. After all, we're created in His image, not the other way around. And so here's God, and God was hurt by their faithlessness. He was hurt every time they didn't trust Him. He was hurt every time He called them to victory and just said, come follow me and I'll lead you into the promised land. And they were too afraid to follow His voice, the voice of their Father. It cut Him deeply. And their lack of trust created problem after problem after problem for them because their relationship was not right with God. And so it didn't matter that they had seen the Egyptian plagues. It didn't matter that they had seen God safely pass over their children and lead them out of all of those plagues that had happened in Egypt. It didn't matter that they had seen victories. And even after the second generation came along that was faithful and they did conquer the land, what happened to the third and the fourth and the fifth? They went right back to reverting to their Egyptian ways of idolatry and treachery and not trusting in God. And so in the end, God took the 10 tribes, Ephraim, whom the emphasis is placed upon in this psalm. It's really following the 10 northern tribes and their history. God took those 10 tribes and God says, no, I'm not going to bless you. And eventually they went off into captivity and really oblivion under Assyrian rule. But I will choose Judah. And God says, I chose Judah not because everybody was faithful there, but because there was one faithful man I made a promise to, David. And so God says that's how much He values faithfulness. One man who was far from perfect. David was not a perfect guy. But because David had faith in God, God blessed that section of the nation, those 2 tribes that went with Judah, Judah and Benjamin. So ultimately, the point of this psalm is to teach future generations. Well, the future generations, what they need to realize is that what defines the nation was always how much they trusted in God. The past generations had not trusted in God as a general rule. So what will future generations do? That's the real key to the whole thing is, what will we teach our children to do? Will we teach our children to place their faith in God, or will we teach our children to place their faith in worldly things and build their lives upon those foundations? It's always got to come back to Jehovah. That's your daily cup, and we'll see you tomorrow.